have a really exciting night for you today. So I asked the boss really nicely and she said that I could do my live this week with the brand new launches that are coming out Wednesday evening, sort of come Thursday. So that was really exciting. So this is probably the first time you'll see this demoed. You would have seen the sneak previews from last Friday evening when Lisa showed you what is coming on to the shows this week. And I really wanted to show you this set in particular because it's just so cute. It's just so lovely. The design team have had a blast creating with not only this set but all the other brand new ones that are coming out as well. So I just wanted to show you a really cute little shaker card with this today, and I just really wanted to show you it in action. The colours I've used are inspired by perhaps something that this might be reminiscent of. I'd imagine you all know what it is that I'm talking about, but it's just so much fun. So I've created this tiny little shaker card with just three of the hearts from the die. Again, what I make today is completely adaptable, and when you see all the other samples on the shows, you've seen that other members of the design team, particularly sort of Natalia and Kendra, who are our shaker card queens, they would have used a lot more of the die and used really fabulous techniques to create something really special. Not many of us have actually done shaker cards on a live either, so if you're unfamiliar with how to make them, or you just perhaps need a refresher, then I thought it might actually be quite a nice idea to show you how to get started with them also. I've made this card on a square card blank and just cut away the front section, so we have the really cute little mini slim sized cards which Lisa is bringing to us and possibly to the UK for the first time as well. So they are gorgeous, but you know how I like to make my square cards. I've also created this little sort of design detail on the front as well. Now these hearts I haven't stuck on, I will do in time for a particular reason, but I couldn't decide whether I like to have this detail, which is just like the half heart detail, or just to have the side sort of shaped, so you have a shaped card, in which case then I would be able to just slot these hearts back in onto the side and have a shaped card. So that's something I'll decide on perhaps later on, and as I make the second card I may keep one of them with hearts on and then the other one without. So let's get going, shall we? I want to introduce you to these dies as we go along as well. So best place to start, I'll bring in the dies and the stamps for this Hearts of Happiness Day, which is so sweet, and as Lisa has said, this may be the way that she actually goes with creating her sentiments in the future as well, because it's along the same lines as the vertical banners. You have the die which die cut all the sentiments out as one solid die, which is actually a really good way of doing it, because what it enables you to do is to stamp out all of your sentiments all at once, put them through the die cutting machine, die cut them all out at once, and so you're left then with a stash. So you could just spend a bit of time when you get your dies through and you just want to play with them straight away, but you may not necessarily have time to create a card. I know what it's like when the post comes through, especially in the morning, and you've got other things that you should be doing. More sensible things in life as opposed to sitting down and creating, but you just really can't wait and you just want to have a little go. So you can stamp out all your sentiments, and then I just keep mine in a little cellophane bag and just pop them back into these storage envelopes. So I shall bring in my stamp. Now I'm using the stamping platform for this because, as you can imagine, the actual stamp plate here is really large, and it makes it ideal to stamp in a stamp plate. Let me show you how we stamp this up. and how it stamps up. But if you are a fan and you've already have Lisa's products, you know how well these perform. So actually it really takes away all the jeopardy of will it or will it not stamp. You know that Lisa's products will, but it's nice just to show you, just to prove a point, that these stamp perfectly. And you can see there, now excuse my my error in the inking up there, I was just pressed a little bit too hard. But as you all know, with these stamping plates, any of the detail that gets in between isn't really an issue. So we just press that down. So we have our beautiful sentiments, which are really useful as well. We have, you can read them there. So you have hello, call me, hugs for you. So it's something that is perfect for any situation. So as we say, we stamp those out. Now I find using these also on the stamping platform invaluable, because a lot of the time I stamp onto textured card, and the stamping platform actually allows you to do that, because you do need to stamp a couple of times because of the nature of the textured card itself. You don't want to press too much because you lose the detail of all the intricate design features within the stamp, but with textured card you do need to go in a couple of times. Now we bring in the dies, and now you can see here, as always, we've always got the confidence that Lisa's dies work so well. We have two little reference points here. We have two tiny little hearts, which when these are die cutting themselves are the cutest little things. I'll just show you here. Look. And I would keep all of these also and use them in your shaker cards, or just as tiny little embellishments, because look how cute they are, especially when they're stamped. So they're not necessarily the main design feature of this set, but I think they're gorgeous. So we line up those two little reference hearts in either corner, and that means that we can then stamp and then die cut all of our sentiments. And as you can imagine, they stamp and die cut beautifully, so when we get to the stage we die cut, they just fall out and you're left with a lovely little heart. You see these little ones here? They're just so cute. I love those. But as I say, I've actually stamped these onto textured cardstock, so they give a really lovely effect there, and you're left with what could actually be used as a stencil. Many of the design team have used this as a stencil, and you'll see that in these shows that are coming up, and possibly even the samples that we've shared with you in our group. Now I was left with this piece of waste, the die cut waste, and I thought this is I wondered how to use this, and I wanted to obviously use my square card, and I wanted to use everything, so I had to find a way to sort of match it all together. So that's when I thought that it would be ideal to use some of this and create a little shaker card. So it's from here that I actually created this little section, and that was the inspiration behind using just the three hearts for the shaker section. So looking at this, I took my trimmer and I started dividing this, and I thought the easiest way to do this was to actually trim this down but cut as close as I can to the hearts next to the three that I wanted, just to try and preserve as much of the cardstock as possible. So I'm just lining up the edge of my guillotine. Can you see that? Yeah, just about. I'm just lining up the edge of the guillotine with the edge of one of these hearts here. So that means I'm just going to preserve as much of this card as possible. So you can see what I've done there. I've just taken away those hearts, the tiny little indents, and I only want to have three because that's what fits nicely onto in the centre of the mini slims there. So I'm just going to take this top heart off again, but just trim as close as I possibly can to the bottom of this top heart, if that makes sense. Okay. So I have my 3 hearts like so. Now the other way of doing it, if you haven't got, oh, let's just put that on the floor, it's going to fall. Now the other way of doing it is to actually die cut those 3 hearts specifically. What have I done with? What have I just done with that die? I'll put it somewhere now. And this is a case, it's possibly right in front of me. What have I just done with my die, my heart die? Well, I never. Oh, there it is. Excuse me, I put things down and I couldn't find them. Now, the other thing is you can actually die cut the 3 hearts specifically onto a small piece of card that would fit. The way to do this would be to actually line up your piece of card and line it up with the edge of the neighbouring heart, so we don't die cut it. So we can just line it up along the edge and line it up just below the cutting edge of the top heart as well. So you can see what I'm doing just there. And then you would use a piece of tape to keep that in place. And then you can run that through your die cutting machine and you would have just your 3 hearts die cut there to give the same effect. So that's what I've got here. That's the one that I've used for the demo. Now, when we're making a shaker card, obviously we need to have contained little sections to actually keep either the glitter or the sequins or whatever it is you're using. So this is where pieces of acetate come in. So let's give you this here. So you can see this piece of acetate, and I cut that to just fit the piece of card that I'm using as the shaker. Now I actually cut it just a slightly bit larger, and then what I do, once I stick this on to each other, then I cut round and trim, because I find cutting acetate can be sort of really tricky. So I find it best that once the 2 layers are attached, then I can trim the acetate down to size, and that keeps everything neat and tidy. Now the next thing we need to do is to create sort of the raised sections that we can actually contain the glitter in, and we do this by using 3D foam. And what we need to do is to put the 3D foam behind the sections of the front of the card, so we can hide it, but we also want to create the channels. Now this looks, I've already put the foam on here to save the time actually, and I'll show you what I've done. I'm going to put the hearts back on top here. Now bear with me a second, I'm just going to cover this up because only half the heart is going to be shown. Right, I'm not quite sure where I left off or where I froze, but we got to the stage where we have our heart apertures, and I'm just about to attach the acetate on the back. So hopefully that's where we were. So I shall just carry on, and hopefully we're all in the same place. Oh, thanks Sarah, we're loud and clear at the moment. So, oh, my screen's gone again. Okay, I'm just going to carry on. I apologise if I can perhaps not see your comments, but I'm attaching the heart apertures there to the acetate, so now we have our window. Now, as part of the design, I decided I was going to use some of the sentiments, but actually cover up some of the heart there. So I'm going to choose a couple of the lovely sentiments we have here. I'm going to use happy, I think. Oh, Miss You would be a good one at the moment, wouldn't it? Happy, Call Me, and oh yeah, Miss You would be a good one too. Okay, so let me attach those. So I'm only going to attach like half of the heart within that window there. Okay, so it's a good way to get an aperture window and use the sentiments on the heart as well. I think it's just a really cute way to mount those back onto the card. You could, of course, if you wasn't making a shaker card, you could add some 3D foam behind the heart and just mount them back into the aperture itself. Okay, let me just check. I'm assuming I'm still online. Oh good, old Pat says you can hear me and Tina says, oh good. Okay, so I have a feeling I'm okay, I just can't see myself. Never mind, I can live with that. Okay, so I'm going to attach those back in. So now you can see that we do have our clear aperture, and if I flip this over you can see what I've actually done with the 3D foam, which is now hidden from the front. And all the workings and all the mechanics of this card is going on the back here. So we have the 3D foam just straight down there to add some stability to the card. Now these cross struts here are actually separating off each of the 3 hearts, and I've used those and I've actually mounted them so they're really close to these sections here. So basically we want to have these 3 sections where I'll be putting the glitter. I want to have those as sealed as possible, so we don't want any leaking of glitter. Oh, the puppy's barking because there's thunder. That's what's happening. That could be why my internet's going funny. We've got a thunderstorm coming in. Okay. And it's the first time we've had a storm with the puppy as well, so hopefully she'll be alright. I'll go rescue her in a moment. Okay. So we have our 3 contained sections here. Now, if this is a little bit too fiddly, it would also be just a great idea to take this section away and just put the 4 sections around. You have a really, you can make one contained unit by having this section, one straight across the top, one down here and one straight across the bottom there. Then you'd have one big section to put in all of the lovely glittery or sequins shaker elements that you're going to put in each section. But so I've gone a little bit trickier. So what it means when I put the 3D foam at the top, I did have to cut that in half so it wouldn't be seen from the front. So you can see from the front, if I look that way, you can't see any of the workings that is going on in the back. So hopefully that will make sense to you. So now I can add the glitter, or the lovely mermaid's tails in this case. I should be using one from a long time ago. It's a Stella Pink, so it's got a lovely orangey pinky colour to this one. I shall use my little coffee stick, which I picked up along the way, and I just fill those sections with lovely, lovely glitter, pretty glitter. And it's a really nice way to use your mermaid's tails actually. So, actually one thing I did forget to do before I attached the acetate was to just give the acetate a quick wipe with the anti-static pad. What that will do, it'll actually stop the glitter sticking to the acetate. It will just take away that static, and it will just allow the mermaid's tails to move a bit freer within the section, because if there's a lot of static on the acetate that you're using, then the aperture to that acetate will just get covered in glitter, which it would be pretty in itself, but obviously we want to see the movement going on. So now I've added my glitter, we want to add the backing to this little element now, so before we put this onto the card. And I always find it easier to add a backing onto the shaker element before mounting it directly onto the card, because it means you have a self-contained unit which is then easier to place exactly where you want it on the front of your card. So if you use a backing of the same size and the same colour as to where you're going to mount it onto the front of your card, then I think that works really well. Now, I'm not the expert when it comes to shaker cards. As I say, if you've seen some of the samples, not only for this release but other releases that Natalia have done, and Kendra in particular, they're fantastic at their shaker cards, and I think they have both created videos. They don't do lives for us, they do create videos though which go onto our YouTube channel, and I think they have demoed their technique in making shaker cards as well, so they'd be highly recommended to go and look up and have a watch also. So there we are, we can see we've got this backing on there. Let's get rid of those memory tails. So when I turn this over, we can see that we've got no glitter coming out, that's just come in between the channels, that's fine. We can see we have our backing and we have our lovely shaker element, and it's not actually sticking too much to the acetate. So we have a lovely little contained unit there, so that's ready to add on to our card blank. So as I said, and as you know, I do really like to use a square card blank. So what I've done here, I've taken one of my square card blanks, I've cut away the front section, so this is the same size as all the mini slims. Now I need to create my layers, so I'll just cut a piece of card that will just match this front section of the card. Now this measures, it's obviously the height of the card, which is just about 15 centimetres, and the width is the width of the mini slims, which works at 10 centimetres. So this front section, this front yellow section, is 15 by 10 centimetres. Now we can start building up the elements. So we have taken a lovely frame, which is one of my favourite frames. This is also from a brand new set. This is from the Mini Slim collection, the Decreasing Stripes set. Now Lisa showed you this also on her preview last Friday, and if you watch Natasha's live on Wednesday evening, she has a fantastic card coming up using this design also, so that'll be one to watch. So I've taken the die, the frame, and die cut this blue section. Now this is a really bright colourful card for me. I've taken inspiration from all our lovely design team members, Tina and Natasha and Heidi. They all are so great at using colours. I tend to go usually more muted, but I've tried something a bit different this week, so we can add our frame there. So when I die cut this frame, I die cut the frame here, and I also use the internal frame, and that is what has allowed me to have this aperture, because I wanted the yellow to be showing through in the centre there. Then I've also used the nested scalloped and stitched rectangles from the previous release, and I have been able to cut, where is it, a section that can fit within the aperture there. So this is the beauty of having the nested dies. We have the die that would fit the aperture, and then we have the next size down, which enables me to create a nested piece, because again I wanted to have that border of yellow coming through. And this is the beauty of Lisa's nested sets. It works, and she always has a plan in ahead, so you can guarantee if a nested set is coming out, then there will be other things that work along with that. So we have our section there. Let me attach that down. Now if you don't have the nested rectangles, like I didn't when I created this one. And you can see here, this section, this cream section, doesn't have any stitching in the background. That's because when I created this card, I didn't have the nested rectangles. So what I did do, I had the mini slim collection. I used the middle die to cut that cream section, which did give me the stitched edge, but because I wanted the pink showing through, I actually trimmed along the stitched edge to give me this layer here. So you really do have this internal section of the die. So if you don't have the nested dies, there is always a way round it. And I don't think it detracts at all with the fact that we don't have any stitching on that area. It just gives a different look. So we've added our layers. Now we can see that when we put our shaker card on there, because we used the backing, which is the same colour as that layer, this sits perfectly on this section here. And just how cute is that? I mean, I think once you get these home, this size die, you will just fall in love using these tiny little dies. They are just so cute. Now let's work on the inside of the card. I've created the insert, and you can see here that we have the heart detail along the side. Now to create that, I hear you ask, because if we were going to die cut this, it would be very hard to just die cut these hearts without taking out this section as well. It would be very hard to gauge how far through the die cutting machine you would need to put that without say cutting into these sections also. So the way to do this is to take your insert, take your die, but actually you're going to be cutting your insert from the reverse. And if you can see the logic of how that works now. So when I turn this over, I'll line this up, imagine that was lined up and it wasn't cut. When I turn that over and I run that through the die cutting machine, there is no chance that you'll be cutting extra hearts into that. So does that make sense? I hope so. And because Lisa has thought about the repeating of the patterns, to cut this extra heart down here, all you need to do is to move. Actually, the way I cut start that again. The way I cut this first was like that, because you can see we have this lovely little reference heart at the top here. Then to cut this heart at the top, we just move this along, and because, as I say, Lisa has thought about how the patterns can repeat, you can just slot that die back into the hearts you've already die cut as a reference point, and that will die cut that extra heart for you at that stage there. I also done the same with the back of the card blank, and I cut this in exactly the same way, and I cut that from the reverse. So when we put that through the die cutting machine, like so, we are only cutting the hearts that we are interested in. So I hope that makes sense. So it's just another way just to use your dies, because obviously we want to get the most that we can from the stash that we invest our money in. So we can attach our insert into the card like so. I thought what was quite a nice little touch as well is that we have this little reference heart. Now initially I wondered how we can sort of cut this and not have that, but I think that's actually quite cute. And I think what it does, it just sort of it shows that this card is Lisa with just that lovely little signature heart. I think they're just gorgeous. Now, just to tidy this edge up, because obviously a lot of these are these edges are loose, I'm going to put this through the trimmer, and the way I'm going to trim is down the centre of each of these hearts. Now we have these the centre points of the hearts there as a reference, so we know that we can line that up so we have a really lovely cut. So I'm just going to line those up along the side of our guillotine and just cut that. Bear with with me. There we are. So we can see here that we have a lovely edged part. Now, bear with me, I'm all confuddled actually. What I wanted to do before I stuck that down is to actually add a slip of card in between those two sections. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that just now, because I can add that on the back. Now if you can see, the way that I can do that is to add a piece of card onto the back here, and that gives us a solid heart, but it gives us a really lovely contrast. Now this is what I was saying with the first card here, we have the contrast also of half the hearts. Now what we could do, we could either leave it like so, and we can add the hearts in, and they fit in just nicely, and you can glue those in, or we can leave it where we actually have the contrast of the hearts. It's entirely up to you. Now you can see on this first card, the way that I've done this, I've actually managed to put the contrast colour in between the insert and the back of the card. This one, the yellow, the contrast would just be along the back, but I think that works just as well. But if you are making this and you want to give this a go, I would suggest remembering to put this in between. And this is how that's the card finished. Now you can use your nesting dies, you can create yourself an insert that would fit on the inside there, so you can actually write the card and you'll be able to decorate this in whichever way you please. You've got all sorts of hearts sitting there. It might actually be quite nice to use one of these tiny little reference hearts and just put that on the inside also, like that. See, that tiny little reference heart would come from that little section there, and it just ties everything in all together, and I think they're just so cute. It's such a lovely set. I do hope that it didn't spoil the demo too much for you. Thanks a lot for joining me. Thanks a lot for persevering also and sticking with me this afternoon. Thank you so much, and I shall see you next week.